high above war-torn Europe, where the air itself seemed to burn with flak and fear. Something impossible appeared in the sky. Two massive American bombers each, weighing over 30 tons locked together like a single wounded creature, flying as one. No one had trained for this. No manual explained it. And yet, against all odds, they were still in the air. It was 1944, the height of the air war over Nazi-occupied Europe during World War II. The skies belonged to no one. Every mission flown by the United States Army Air Forces was a gamble against death. Their weapon of choice, the legendary B-17 Flying Fortress, was designed for one purpose: to endure. Bristling with up to 13.50 caliber machine guns, capable of flying at 30,000 feet and carrying bombs deep into enemy territory, it was a symbol of American air power. But even the Flying Fortress had its limits. On a cold day over Germany, the B-17s crippled, bleeding fuel, and barely holding together found themselves caught in a nightmare. One aircraft had been torn apart by anti-aircraft fire. Its tail section was shredded, its control systems failing. The pilot, struggling to keep the plane level, knew they wouldn't make it back alone. Nearby, another B-17 had its own wounds engine sputtering, wings scarred by flak bursts that blossomed like black flowers in the sky. The air was filled with the thunder of explosions and the sharp cracks of German anti-aircraft guns. Visibility dropped as smoke filled the cockpit. Every second felt like the last. Inside one of those bombers, a young pilot barely in his 20s gripped the controls with frozen hands. Let's call him Lieutenant James Carter. He could hear the frantic voices of his crew over the intercom, each man reporting damage, injuries, dwindling oxygen. One gunner shouted that they were losing altitude fast. Another reported that the tail gun was gone. Carter looked out through the shattered glass of his cockpit and saw something that defied belief. Another B-17, limping through the sky, drifting dangerously close. In most situations, this would be a death sentence. Mid-air collisions were catastrophic, turning aircraft into falling debris within seconds. But fate had other plans. The two bombers drifted closer. Closer still, and then, with a violent jolt, metal screamed against metal takeover, but they did not fall. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The upper bomber's damaged structure became entangled with the lower one. Their wings locked, their fuselages pressed together in a fragile, terrifying balance. It wasn't a clean impact, it was a chaotic, jagged interlocking of torn aluminum and broken frames. Two dying aircraft had become one. Inside both planes, chaos erupted. Men were thrown from their seats. Instruments shattered. The roar of engines blended into a deafening symphony of destruction. For a moment, it seemed impossible that either aircraft could remain airborne. But somehow, the lower aircraft still had partial control. Its pilot, equally stunned, realized what had happened. He wasn't just flying his own crippled bomber anymore. He was carrying another. Together, the combined weight pushed the aircraft beyond its design limits. The B-17 was built to carry heavy bomb loads, but not another airplane. The strain was immense. Wings groaned under pressure. Engines screamed as pilots pushed them beyond safe limits, coaxing every ounce of power from machines already on the brink of failure. If even one critical component gave out, both planes would plummet. In the upper aircraft, Carter and his crew faced a different kind of terror. Their controls were useless. They weren't flying anymore. They were passengers, trapped in a metal coffin, suspended thousands of feet above enemy territory. Some crew members prepared to bail out. Parachutes were checked. Prayers were whispered. But others hesitated. Jumping from such a tangled wreck risked hitting the other aircraft or being caught in the debris. Time slowed. Below them, Germany stretched out like a hostile sea. Anti-aircraft guns continued firing, though less accurately now. The strange silhouette of two fused bombers confused even the enemy gunners. Inside the lower B-17, the pilot made a decision that would define the moment. He would try to bring them home. It was nearly impossible. The added drag and weight made maneuvering sluggish. Climbing was out of the question. Even maintaining altitude was a struggle. Every mile flown was a battle against gravity itself. Fuel was running low. Engines were overheating. And yet, the strange, fused aircraft kept moving west. Minute by minute, mile by mile, they crossed enemy lines. The crew remained tense, knowing that any sudden movement, any structural failure, could tear the two planes apart or send them spiraling down together. Finally, they reached friendly territory. But the ordeal wasn't over. Landing such a monstrosity was beyond reason. The pilot of the lower aircraft knew he had one chance and it wouldn't be pretty. One by one, crew members from the upper bomber began to jump, now that they were over safe ground. Parachutes blossomed in the sky. drifting down like fragile white petals. Each successful jump reduced the weight slightly, giving the lower aircraft a fighting chance. At last, the lower B-17 prepared for landing. The runway rushed toward them. The aircraft was unstable, heavy, barely responsive. The pilot cut power at the last possible moment. Impact. The landing gear strained, nearly collapsing under the abnormal load. Metal groaned. The aircraft skidded, bounced, and dragged itself across the runway. And then, it stopped. Silence. Smoke drifted from the engines. Ground crews rushed forward, staring in disbelief at what had just arrived. Grotesque fusion of two bombers that should never have survived. Against all logic, against all probability, they had made it back. This was not just a story of machines. It was a story of men young, ordinary men, thrown into extraordinary circumstances. Men who trusted each other in moments where fear could have taken over. Men who refused to give up, even when everything around them said it was over. Incidents like this highlighted both the resilience of the United States Army Air Forces and the brutal reality of the air war. Bombing missions over Europe had some of the highest casualty rates of the entire war. Crews faced flak, enemy fighters, mechanical failure, and the constant threat of death at 20,000 feet. The B-17 earned its nickname the Flying Fortress not just because of its guns or armor, but because of stories like this. Stories where aircraft returned with entire sections missing. Stories where crews survived against impossible odds. But this was something else. Two bombers, locked together in the sky, surviving what should have been certain destruction. It became a symbol not just of engineering durability, but of human determination. Because in war, survival often comes down to moments that cannot be planned, trained, or even imagined. Moments where instinct takes over, where courage outweighs fear, where two broken machinish, the men inside them refused to fall. And as the war eventually drew to a close, as victory came at a cost measured in millions of lives, stories like this remained, not as myths, but as reminders, that even in the darkest skies of World War II, there were moments of sheer, unbelievable resilience. Moments when the impossible stayed in the air.